And action! Hello there, yours truly back in the cinematic hot seat with an originally saw this on a Facebook group that I frequent and love being a part of and chilling and willing called Movie Mash. Please give them a holler and look see. Special shout out to Shannon Nuxon, forgive me for butchering your name, about Yard Breakers post on their website about bad movies that have great soundtracks. So I was compelled, intrigued, and ready to pounce on this and add my cinematic ticket to this premiere. And let's begin. Blue Hawaii, 1961. I never saw this, but I won't rush into any judgment on it. It does have Elvis Presley, which I'm not a fan of, but I can't knock either the film or the soundtrack. So this will go into a neutral vote. Cocktail, 1988. Yes, I agree 110%. This movie was bad, very bad, but I very much love the soundtrack. Kokomo, anyone. Let that music play on the radio or in the store and you're bobbing your head and moving your body. Graffiti Bridge, 1990. Never saw this, but this has Prince's musical talents and prowess to it. I like and jam to several of Prince's songs, so yes, can agree with bad movie, great soundtrack. Judgment Night, 1993. Saw this with my dad back in the day. I think this was ahead of its time in release window. It was unique in many ways. Had this been released in the early 2000s, this would have sparked fire and been a mega blockbuster. Plus, the soundtrack is great, so I will disagree with this being a bad movie, and I agree with being a great soundtrack. Above the Rim, 1994. This wasn't bad at all, but this is a demographic movie. Back when this released, there was no Eminem, no Justin Timberlake. You did have Vanilla Ice and Snow, but they were hockey parodies, characters of Yo Mom, Word to Your Mother, even back then. So there was no white rapper pap line where anybody from the picket fence developments and cul-de-sacs can empathize and hang out with inner city hood movies. You couldn't be some corporate dad, suburban housewife, shelter kid in neighborhoods far from the inner cities and hood. And you had to be there and experience the inner cities. You had to experience and grow up in the hood and the basketball courts to get the idea and appreciate the flow of this movie. So this will have to go into neutral vote. Dead Presidents, 1995. I wholeheartedly disagree with this being a bad movie. No, if anything, this movie was beyond any expectation. This movie is what needs to return to cinema and Hollywood in general. True toward the force, no holds barred, no hand holding, straight up in your face, keeping you on the edge of your chair. This movie was an underrated lightning in a bottle. If anything, this movie deserves another showcase. No, not a sequel, but a re-release. Yes, agreed. This movie's soundtrack was fire, hot, hotter, and hottest. Batman Forever, 1995. I said this in my retrospective review of Forever 2 years ago. If you think this and Robin as continuation of the Adam West Burt Ward Batman from 1966, the campiness, the zaniness, the cheekiness, the pow, the bam, the woof, the poof, the zam. Without those expressions, then you come to warm up and love these. So because of that, I disagree with this being a bad movie. Agree with this being a great soundtrack. This and with the and Robin as Space Jam, which isn't on this list, their soundtrack was untouchable, flawless, and liquid. Pure godsend and heavenly. Here's to you, WB of the mid to late 90s. Reality Bites, 1994. I thought this movie was boring, a tedious grind, and just wasting my time. But like with Above the Rim, I came to realize that this is a demographic movie and no pipeline for black guy like myself to connect so I can empathize with this and enjoy. So no hard feelings. Soundtrack for me was okay, nothing special, but then again, demographic speaking here. So I have to put this into the neutral vote. Girl 6, 1996. Hated it. Both the movie and the soundtrack. Nah, this movie and the soundtrack wasn't great. This was more like, girl, bye, please. A Lifeless Ordinary, 1997. Same fate with Reality Bites and Above of the Rim. This is another demographic movie. You have to be exactly or experience who's on the screen. Now, I didn't like it anything. I didn't like the movie or the soundtrack. So, neutral. Spawn, 1997. The late 90s was tough for supernatural comic book adaptation movies, and Spawn unfortunately had to be dug into that toughness. Now, I enjoyed this then and now. Good movie, even for a PG-13 rating, but come on now. Cut this movie some slack. The lexicon wasn't ready for a hard R adaptations. No, not yet. Blade, a year later, was the expectation, not the rule. So it needed a few more years after. The soundtrack, I didn't find anything about the soundtrack remotely good, let alone great. It was actually forgettable. I didn't like it at all. So this movie will go into great movie, bad soundtrack. City of Angels, 1998. Saw this just once, and I agree with Yard Barker. Entertainment once again. Bad movie, great soundtrack. This movie had nothing to even write about, but the soundtrack, you will be soaring into the skies when you listen. Velvet Goldmine, 1998. Never saw this. I never heard about this until now. This and the soundtrack doesn't look like my cup of tea anyway, so neutral. Small Soldiers, 1998. I was the actor's age when this released, so I'm kind of biased over this. I enjoyed it, I liked it, and I loved it. You had to be a millennial, the demographic to get the idea, sit back and relax in this reverse flow to understand and have a great time. Yes, the soundtrack was on fire, and so was Small Soldiers, because everything else is just a toy. Godzilla, 1998. I'm not one of those diehard Godzilla fans, so this, before Hanna-Barbera's cartoon of Godzilla and Godzooky, I was a fan of that. I just took this as the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, just rolled with it without Godzooky. And yes, the soundtrack was fire. Armageddon, 1998. Love this then, loving it now. Cinema, Hollywood, this is the perfect summer blockbuster ragtag team ensemble movie. This movie's solid gold. I really wish critics would come to realize that. This is a movie. Sci-fi, science fiction. Not a documentary, not a NASA after school special, not science reality, not based off of. This is a movie, fictional, fake. No need for armchair critics shedding this by bit because of inaccuracies, factual errors, gaffes, etc., etc. Sincerely, take a chill pill. Don't stress over the mistakes or the goofs, and that's not possible. Just sit back and relax. Armageddon is G.I. Joe, He-Man, and Rambo to sci-fi being in space, not to the right stuff, Apollo 13 and NASA tutorials, educational films. Agreed. Soundtrack to infinity and beyond. Fires on all cylinders. I highly recommend it. Belly, 1998. Heard about it, seen it on video shelves, never saw this, not my cup of tea. I can't agree about the soundtrack. 200 Cigarettes, 1999. Never saw this or heard about this, and since it's a rom-com, I keep far, far away from. Looks like another case of demographic movie, so into the neutral vote with you. Jawbreaker, 1999. Let's get catty. Meow, meow. Love this all the way with this sweet, spicy, and deadly girl power flick. This, like Heather's Night from 1989, as mentioned by Yard Barker. So, to the disagree with this being bad and agree with it being a great soundtrack. The Beach, 2000. I'm one of those who actually like this. This was before the super mega ultra success of Titanic and before adult Leonardo DiCaprio, where he mellowed out and became much more than a pretty face. So I can understand why it's bad, but I liked it. Soundtrack, I thought it was forgettable. So, great movie for me, bad soundtrack. I Am Sam, 2001. We got an Oscar bait here. I never seen this then, have zero interest in seeing it now, so that takes this into the neutral vote. Wicker Park 2004. Nope and nope. Rom-coms are the bane of cinema. I'm just saying. Elizabethtown 2005. Another rom-com, so another nope and nope. Southland Tales 2007. I never came around to actually see this, just the trailers, teasers, and posters. So, neutral. I may do some cinematic research and development on this. The soundtrack, just haven't seen it, so I can't really say anything about it. So, neutral. Smoking Aces 2007. I thought this movie was super clever, unique, and fun. I don't get why people chewed this up and spat it out. It was just off the walls, in your face, rambunctious. This is what the type of movie I would love to either star in or be a sidekick or villain or side villain. The soundtrack, okie dokie. Men, Women, and Children 2014. More rom-com. Pass. Into Nope Town. The Twilight and 50 Shades franchise. I'd rather eat a shotgun 12 gauge point blank, take a lightning bolt head on while chugging down battery ads while being eaten alive than to say these were anything remotely of a nano microscopic level of good or even watchable. Not all mega blockbusters are good. Not all lexicons are worthy of praise. These demon spawns and their foul, ungodly stench still lingers in cinema. So it's bad and bad. And now we come to the final act of this. Hope you stay for entirety. Please leave a like on this video. Definitely comment down below. And don't you forget about me. And cut. That's a wrap.